Welcome to the show, Total Financial Solutions, Safer Money Hour. Talking about your family's finances, of course, getting out of debt, managing money, planning for your future. And what is that all about when it comes to trying to make a living? You know, you've heard us talk about small businesses. Really is the only secret, in my opinion, to success in America. Certainly there are other ways to get there. But if you want to have, I think, everything, freedom, opportunity, small business, you can't beat it. So you also can't beat the hard work that goes with it. And the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, some of you have heard of what they do. We'll get into that in just a second. But part of the challenge with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce is to understand how they fit into your life. Often it seems like they're so far removed on the other side of the country, but they are involved day to day right here in the Santa Clarita Valley. Carrie Sampson is a manager of programs for the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, and she joins us live on the air. Hi, Carrie.
Hi, thanks for having me.
You're welcome. I'm so glad you're here today. We're going to talk about a couple of things that are specific that are going on with the Chamber of Commerce, but more importantly, give me a little bit of an overview about what the Chamber does and why it would matter to us here on the, what do we call it, the left coast, and you're the east coast?
Absolutely. So I actually work on the U.S. Chamber's Foundation side of the house. So that's the nonprofit 501c3 end of the largest business association in the world. We represent about 3 million businesses that the Chamber does, both large and small. And we have state and local affiliates all over. Now, we are a sort of a federation of our business and local chamber members. So sometimes we have local chambers that are members of their state chambers, sometimes not. Sometimes we've got state chambers that are directly members of us, sometimes not. So we're kind of a hodgepodge of the business, representing the business community coast to coast. But we've got a lot of small businesses. They're really the backbone of our economy, and we have a whole sort of end of the chamber, sort of C6 end of the house that's focused directly on small business. So they're a really critical part of our business community.
And that's helpful to a lot of small businesses because when we get started, we are generally the chief cook and bottle washer, if you will, of our own businesses. We have to handle a lot of our basic legal issues and our accounting, and of course we have to be experts in permits and fees and with the city and the county that we work in. So you guys are there to provide a bit of a guidance and almost kind of watch our backs, if you will, as a small business owner. Is that right?
We do try. I mean, the way I like to think of it is that our business members and our chamber members are really doing the work on the ground, and we're just trying our best to be that support system, to be sort of the bandwidth when they don't have the bandwidth and be the resource when they need the resources. We are definitely a service-oriented organization over here.
Yeah, you guys have been around for how long? It's been an organization that has assisted...
I believe 1912. I feel like we just celebrated our 100th anniversary. I joined the chamber in 1914, so I did not get the fancy swag that some of my colleagues got for our centennial. But I believe we've been around since 1912. But I would have to fact check myself on that one. Early 1900s.
And I met you. Yeah, I met you recently in D.C. And I'll tell you didn't look as if you were born in 1914. So I'm guessing you started at 2014. Is that right?
Yeah, I started in February of 2014, but it's a lot of good creams I use at night.
Yeah, and you guys were awesome and wonderful hosts to a contingent of folks right here from the Santa Clarita Valley that had gone to Washington, D.C. as a bit of a lobbying / communications back and forth to what we need and what's going on there in D.C. And you were one of those folks that were kind enough to meet with us. It's a great program. And you have something called TPM. It stands for Talent. Sorry,
TPM, yeah.
Yeah, Talent Pipeline Management, right?
Yes, absolutely. So just kind of a high-level overview. So in the foundation, we're made up of a number of centers, everything from our corporate a Citizenship Center, which focuses on CSR, corporate social responsibility initiatives on a whole breadth of issues. We've also got Hiring Our Heroes, which is a veterans hiring and military spouse job placement and hiring initiative. And then I'm in the Center for Education and Workforce. And what we do is we try and help the business community make an impact on the education and workforce pipelines, all the way from pre-K through K-12 into higher ed and then to workforce development. And my project that I work on through a generous grant through USA funds and under the tutelage of our executive director, Jason Tishko, this is really his brain baby, is called Talent Pipeline Management. And the idea behind that was that we were hearing from our members that what we're facing in this country is a skills gap. We have people without jobs and jobs without people, and that's not really good for either camp. And right now we've got about 5 million jobs in this country sitting unfilled because businesses can't find the talent they need to fill them. And if we do nothing, the Georgetown Center for Education and the Workforce estimates that we'll be hitting about 6 million jobs in 2020.
And is that where these HB1 visas, where we bring in people from overseas to fill these positions?
So, we found that traditionally, if you think back to the 1950s, the way that people sort of grew in their careers is that they started at an entry-level position and they sort of stayed in the same organization for long periods of time, and you went through sort of an investment with in professional development with that company, and you sort of moved sort of slowly up the ladder. And then we kind of shifted in sort of the 80s to that kind of just-in-time talent, to going to those H-1B visas or going to sort of outsourcing folks. And we realized that we don't have an economy where people sort of stay in jobs for 30 years anymore, and we can't really rely on that just-in-time talent anymore. And so what we need to do is we need sort of a new way of thinking about how the employer community can really take a leadership role in building flexible and responsive partnerships with education and workforce partners to be able to create programs that meet business needs today and will meet business needs sort of in that near future and that long-term future. And it's a real shift in thinking about sort of who's leading and why and what the purpose of the business community's involvement in education should be.
And at the risk of alienating some of the folks, and more for discussion, why in the heck should a business even care about social responsibility? Their job is to make cars or build a widget or serve at a restaurant. Now you're telling me they have to be good at healthcare, they have to be good at somebody's, retirement accounts, and by the way, we've got to be socially. What is that all about? And where does the chamber play a role in that?
Sure. So I will let my colleagues over at the Corporate Citizenship Center take the bulk of that question, but the way we think about ourselves here in the foundation is that we're here to help businesses do good, do well, and prepare for the future. And I just had a really interesting meeting with my colleagues over at the Corporate Citizenship Center where they have been working with businesses who are interested in eliminating waste from their supply chains. And while that's a great sort of social responsibility thing, thinking about eliminating waste, and that's good for the environment, but it's also good for business to be able to streamline those processes and get sort of more bang for your buck. So we think of in education, it's not so much of a CSR move, but it's more of an investment in your future workforce. And the business community, at the end of the day, is sort of the end customer of the education and workforce pipeline. The goal is to come out of an education well-rounded with critical thinking skills and all of these great things to become a good citizen, but also to have those practical skills to be able to get a job and start a career and build the kind of life that you want to build. And so we feel that in CEW, that the employer community has a lot of knowledge to share, has a lot of input to share into those things.
Hey, Carrie, this is Jeff. How does a small business take advantage of some of those processes or those systems that talent pipeline management has put in place?
Absolutely. So I'll give you guys kind of a real high-level overview of TPM. TPM is based on the principles of supply chain management. So just like Toyota knows exactly how many tires they need, when they need them, how many, where they're going to get them from, how much it's going to cost. And it's a really sort of very particular set of relationships that the end customer sort of has with those suppliers. So we've found that you can take some of those business strategies that have really worked in our community and apply them to talent to help fix this growing skills gap that we're seeing. And the way that we do this is through 6 key strategies. And the first key strategy is getting employers together to talk about their shared pain points. So when I say getting employers together, I mean employers in the same region, in the same industry and region would be great, to come together in ways that maybe they haven't been comfortable enough to do before, but to come together in what we call an employer collaborative and decide what their shared pain point is going to be for hiring in the near future. And this is really a helpful strategy for small business because, as you say, they're trying to run their business, they're trying to put food on their own tables, and it can be really hard to strike out on your own and make an impact in those relationships with your education partners all by yourself. And so the beauty of a collaborative is that it really amplifies your voice, and out of many, you can really help amplify your needs. So the idea is for coming together in that employer collaborative. That's our first strategy, and then talking about what your needs are. So say you're a bunch of software development companies and you need software developers, figuring out, in 18 months, not just those long-term projections that we see out of those LMI strategies, but those short-term projections that these employers in this group, they know, we're going to need 1,000 in the next 18 months, and this is what we need them to be able to know and do in a very particular way, not just, they should have a bachelor's degree or they should have some teamwork skills, but really defining what that means for that collaborative. What are the skills that they're supposed to be getting in that bachelor's degree?
And this
how
is
can
important
we boil that down?
Because you guys go back all the way down to the college, to the university, the community college, and even the high school levels, I guess, on some levels, so that you can sit down, if you will, and really bring in the foundation of what's needed all the way through the education process. Isn't that right?
Yeah, so once the collaborative has really defined their needs in a very particular way, and they've all kind of gotten their ducks in a row, and they know exactly how many they need and who they need and what they need to be able to do, then we get into this process, which is my favorite strategy, called talent flow analysis. And that's where the collaborative goes out and tries to figure out, well, where are we getting our best talent today? Mm-hmm. And that's where we get to your point of going not only back necessarily, the first step is probably either the boot camp that those software developers went to, right before they got hired, or maybe it is a college program or community college program, that sort of that last layer of sort of classroom before you get to hiring. But then you can go back even further and say, okay, well, I'm hiring folks out of this community college program. Where do those people go to high school? And how can I better engage with those high school students to start getting them some career awareness now so I can entice them to go to the program where I know that I'm getting the best results? Where did those kids maybe even go to elementary school or middle school? How can I better engage with those partners? And being able to see in a more holistic way that value chain of where employers can really start engaging, not just in a kind of a broad brush sense of, I'll do a career day at this middle school because it's something that is good for my community. It is. But if you can also make the case of it's good for your community and it's going to be good for these students, because these students tend to go to this program, which then comes to you, and you want to make sure that you're preparing them early, mm-hmm. and you're engaging with those classrooms early, so that when they walk in your door on day one of being hired, they have the skills, knowledge, and abilities to succeed.
And so that works all the way through where the business may not want to necessarily become part of this overall development process of having to be, mother, father, and babysitter, if you will, to some employees. But in fact, they may be even forced to just to survive, just to be able to find the next 20, 30 years of talent. Because we have found out that about 25% of Boeing's workforce will actually become eligible to retire between 2014 and 2018. And they're going to be retiring. I mean, it's not a normal thing for somebody to work, till they're 75, 80 years old. So it really changes the dynamic, I think, for small businesses. And we have a great example here at College of the Canyons in Santa Clarita. One of the top community colleges in the nation. I believe it was number 5 in the top 5 in California, and in the top, I think top 20 or so in the nation. Incredible college, great leadership. The challenge that I had is that we recently reached out to small business and to the Automobile Dealers Association, so maybe on a bit of a different level, and all of a sudden we are getting great results. And I thought, why isn't the rest of the state or maybe the rest of the nation doing it? And it sounds like the U.S. Chamber, through this foundation, is beginning that collaborative in a much closer arrangement anyway than ever before.
Absolutely. So this initiative is still relatively new. We just started with a concept white paper in 2014, which we then sort of got a lot of interest around, and we did a pilot study just in this last year in 2015, where we had 7 communities around the country who were interested in trying to implement these 6 strategies. I would be remiss if I didn't get my last 2 strategies. I've already done employer collaboratives, 1, demand planning, 2, communicating competencies and credentials. So what do they need to know and be able to do? That's 3. My favorite, talent flow analysis, that's 4. And then 5 and 6 are all about those sort of shared measures and aligning incentives to make sure that the partner organizations, those providers, those education and workforce partners are serving the employer's needs, and that the employer is incentivizing those partnerships that are really performing to continue performing at that high level. So we had some folks in 7 communities go out and kind of test these strategies for us. They came back and told us what worked and what didn't. So we put it all together in a book, and that, I am proud to say, was a smashing success. And we now have started what we call the Talent Pipeline Management Academy, or TPM Academy, where we are engaging even more communities in what we're calling cohorts. We just started cohort 1 of about 20 folks on October 5th. That was their very first in-person meeting, and we gave them some strategies on how to think about beginning their own employer collaboratives and begin thinking a little more critically about what are those critical jobs that their communities are going to need, and trying to figure out how many they're going to need and what they're going to need to know and be able to do. Try and start thinking about those things. And we are going to, we gave them a little bit of homework, and we're going to be checking in with them and then bringing them back in January and giving them the next 6 strategies, or the next 3 strategies. And then we'll start our second cohort in February. So
who were some
the
of the
idea at this point is scale.
Yeah. And who are some of the employers, like not necessarily the names of the companies, but the types of employers that were part of that first go-around?
So we had a lot of different industries that were involved with us. We had the IT and cybersecurity industry was involved with us in Northern Virginia. That's a really hot area right now where they need a lot of folks, and they did some digging into their own research to figure out where they were getting people, and they had some surprising results, which I think has been really useful for them to kind of jump off of. And we also worked with our manufacturing industry, Vermilion Advantage, which is out of Danville, Illinois, so Eastern Illinois. They've really been kind of leading the pack on this. They've been doing some great employer collaborative work for years, and so they were part of one of our strategies. And we had a really interesting collaborative with our Arizona Chamber of Commerce partners, and they said, what we really are lacking right now is quality teachers, enough quality teachers.
Wow.
So they went back and did some research. They met with some school leaders who were in their A schools, particularly in communities that were high poverty, a lot of free and reduced lunch programs, children going to those schools, but still reaching that sort of A designation or sort of an on the way to A designation. And they did a survey of those school leaders and said, where are you getting your teachers? And they found out that a lot of those schools were identifying themselves as the best retrainers of these teachers because they weren't necessarily getting enough quality teachers from the programs that they had. There's a lot of great programs that are going on in Arizona, and they just haven't been scaled or they're still being scaled, and we need those areas need teachers today. So I'm actually doing a quick case study on that. That'll be out at the end of the month. But yeah, we had some really interesting results. The energy sector was also involved with us out of Michigan. They did some really interesting work trying to get high school kids more interested in working in the energy industry, particularly because there's going to be a lot of retirees, the folks that work out on your power lines.
Yeah, for sure.
The baby boomers are retiring from that industry, so that was another one that was really good. And we had some partners in Kansas that were doing IT work as well. So manufacturing, healthcare is another big sort of industry that we found has a lot of skill gaps. IT and energy. So those are sort of the big four that we sort of see again and again.
And are you seeing across the board the communities that are finding out about you are getting more excited about the process, or really about bringing, if you will, the next step of collaboration so that they can continue the domination, if you will, of the United States, the economy, the business leaders here in this country? We seem to be lacking. Certainly we've had some suffering of our image nationally, at least in businesses over the last 20, 30 years, where people are taking jobs off of our soil. And are you seeing businesses really push back on that?
We really feel that the TPM solution is the Talent Pipeline Management Initiative is really solutions by business and for business, and we really think that is a game changer. The traditional ways that employers tend to engage are through those sort of job fair sorts of things, CSR initiatives, sitting on workforce investment boards, and maybe sitting on some of their college boards, and there's sort of one voice in a room. There's sort of like the business representative in the room, and that is a very important role, and we feel that there are a lot of good outcomes from engaging in those traditional ways. But what TPM advocates for is really employers taking a leadership role, which I don't think that they have seen themselves in before necessarily, of really getting together with those industry partners, really doing their homework. It's putting employers in the driver's seat, but with that comes sort of being in the hot seat of getting really specific about what your needs are, and maybe looking at those job descriptions a little more closely and seeing, when was the last time they were really updated, and why do I have these sorts of things in my job descriptions? Do I really need those things? Is there a better way to communicate these needs? And being able to then go in a collaborative, as an employer, collaborative, as an industry, as a region, to their education partners with a clear message of, I know we said that we need this, but maybe we were a little vague about it before, or yes, we still need these critical jobs filled, and so we need people who have these sorts of credentials, but we need them to be able to have these very specific skills that maybe they don't have right now, and we as employers are having to kind of retrain on our end, and we feel that, the education community can sort of step up their programs a little bit, or adapt their programs a little bit. And as an incentive, those preferred providers, those providers who are giving those top-tier talent to that employer collaborative or to those employers, they can maybe see some sort of preferred internships, or maybe there's a piece of equipment that students need to be able to work on, and that's something that maybe could be donated to a top program as a way to incentivize that top performance going forward. And we feel that if you can bridge this divide and bridge sort of this communication gap that's contributing to the skills gap, both can be narrowed. And that creates better outcomes for employers because they've got the prepared employees that they need, and it also creates better outcomes for students because they have they can see real career paths going into a post-secondary program or a boot camp or what have you, and know, you know what, I'm not just going in here for the joy of education necessarily. It's that, but it is also because I know that I'm going to be able to be getting the skills that are going to set me up for the career that I want to have.
And the employees are happy because they are getting fed and treated, if you will, at a much higher level. Their knowledge is continuing to grow. And, of course, the employers are getting a much larger base. What about, as we finish up the program, we're going to take a break here in just a second, but tell me real quick, how do we get a hold of you? How do I find out more about this talent pipeline management? If we have a listener who's unemployed for a while and they want to retrain or they want to go back to school, how can the U.S. Chamber of Commerce help?
Sure. Well, all of our publications, we have a lot of videos and multimedia sort of tidbits and resources, all available on our website. It's called thetalentsupplychain.org. And there you'll find just a whole mess of resources, some at a very kind of wonky level, and our videos are much sort of at a higher level to really start allowing employers to see themselves in this new role.
And the employees themselves can go to that same website and walk through and see if they can get some insight.
We think that engaging with your local chambers, asking them about this. Have they heard about TPM? That we're always looking for our chamber partners. We feel that our state and local chambers are a really good resource to kind of host these employer collaboratives because they have such deep ties to their local business communities. They have their thumb on the pulse of what that community's business needs are. So going to your local chambers and asking, I've heard about this program. I'm interested in it. Have you heard about it? And my contact information is on that website. So I would welcome more questions about the TPM initiative.
Folks, as we take a break here, we're going to say thank you to our U.S. Chamber of Commerce. Look, folks, you have to realize they are there for us. They are there for what they do for us on a daily basis. You're not going to understand this as much, but the foundation headed by Carrie Sampson and her team have really put together the best shot, I think, in today's competitive environment. If you've traveled around the world, you realize that we are sometimes at a disadvantage, whether it be wages, cost of living, regulation, and we need all the help we can get. And that is here for you through the talent pipeline management. I know that College of the Canyons is a great resource, guys. I want you to reach out to them, too. I'll see if I can get a phone number for you when we return. Thanks for joining us, Carrie. Appreciate it. You have a wonderful day back there.
Thanks for having me. You have a great sunny day.
Thank you. We are very sunny right here in Santa Clarita.
Very
your place.
Lucky.
Yes. This is your place for news, talk, and information. I'm Arif Halaby on AM 1220, Total Financial Solutions, Safer Money Hour. We'll be right back.